I used to be the shyest person in the room. Now I've spoken on multiple TEDx stages. I was always broke. Now I built a multi-six-figure business. I thought I was unlovable, but now I am married to the love of my life. The biggest thing that I have learned after studying neuroscience, probably for like the past 6 months in depth and detail, is who you are, your identity can change. And it can change very, very fast. The crazy part is it does not matter your circumstances. So it doesn't matter how old you are. It does not matter what experiences you've gone through. And it doesn't matter how many times you've tried to change your life and change your identity, but failed by doing so. And that's what I'm covering in today's video. I've truly firsthand have upgraded my identity so many times and changed my life. And once I understood that you are actually in control of how your identity is formed and created and basically brought into reality, everything truly changed for me. And I'm gonna show you in today's video how that's actually possible, because everybody on social media online, they says, oh, like upgrade your identity, you do these affirmations, do these meditations. And once again, all of those things and principles, they work, but there's so much more that goes into true identity shifting and true identity creation. So to make this process super easy for you to understand, I'm breaking down this video into 3 sections. We're first going to go through what actually creates your current identity, because what you believe about your identity right now, you think you're just born with your identity, isn't necessarily true. And then I'm going to go through what actually changes your identity, what factors come into play, whether it's like externally or internally. And then finally, we're going to go through the exact steps to shift your identity and create your new one for good. Now, before we get into it, I always love adding in a disclaimer, because I am no pro when it comes to neuroscience. Honestly, it's just a topic and something that I fell in love with over the course of this past year. But I learned that neuroscience, it has a really good pairing with manifestation. And you guys already know I love manifestation. So I've learned like the simplest things about neuroscience and how that once again is in direct correlation of changing your life. So once again, I'm no pro, but in this video, I'm gonna show you the simplest things that you can grasp and you can actually use to shift your identity. So let's get right into it. There's a lot I'm gonna cover. I'm gonna have slides. I'm gonna be drawing out diagrams. And I always love to say, if you love any part of this video, just make sure to hit subscribe. One of my goals this year is to reach 100,000 subscribers on this channel, because I always learn so much about neuroscience, manifestation, changing your life, identity creation work. And it just fuels me when I see that you guys really love my video. So if you're not a part of the fam, just hit subscribe. So first things first, what is actually creating your current identity? Now, before we understand what creates your identity, we want to first know what actually does it mean to like have an identity? Like, what's the real definition of an identity? Now, this is basically who you are and the I am statements that create your reality. So to be honest, your identity is basically the lens of how you're showing up in the world. Now, the most important thing that we need to understand when it comes to creating a new identity and shifting our identity is what parts make up an identity, because there's 3 different things I'm going to go through. The first thing is your beliefs and your values. Now, this is basically, once again, what you believe to be true about yourself, about the world, what you, once again, value over other things. And then the second thing is life's experience. So this can be positive experiences and this can be negative experiences. So growing up, if you had a really positive experience when it comes to money, odds are when you're older, you're probably making a lot of money. On the flip side, if you had a really traumatic experience when it came to like your dynamic relationship in your family unit, odds are now that you're older, you have a hard time being in a relationship. So once again, the life experience that you have, whether it's positive or negative, that affects your identity. And then lastly, we have personality. And that's basically how a person thinks, how they feel, how they behave. And once again, that's formed with your life experiences and your beliefs and your values. Now, the reason why identity work is so important when it comes to change, and honestly, when it comes to manifesting anything that you want in your life, is because if you don't actually believe you can do something or you can even change, it does not matter consciously how hard you try, because subconsciously you're always going to be holding yourself back. So the first lesson I really want you to understand and take away is identity transformation cannot simply happen just by like reading off affirmations or even writing down affirmations. And the reason why, once again, is because your identity, it's rooted subconsciously. It's not just something that is conscious. All of those things can help, and I'm going to talk about those a little bit later, but you need to understand and you need to realize if you're consciously trying to change your identity, that's probably one of the reasons why it hasn't necessarily happened yet. So this next thing I'm going to show you is going to blow your mind away, because it blew my mind away the first time I really learned about this and the first time I understood it. So I'm going to show you how we actually see the world, because it's not necessarily how we think it is. So you don't actually see with your eyes. What happens is your eyes take in light, and what you see is basically filtered through thousands of neural pathways in your brain. Now, your brain is creating your perception of the world through what's in your mind. And once again, what's in your mind are your thoughts, beliefs, and your habits. So it's always interpreting what you see based on what's in your mind. So to be honest, what you see in the world, what you see in reality is filtered through thousands of memories, thousands of thought patterns and loops, different habits and actions that you're always taking. So the most important thing here I really want you to understand is your brain is showing you your version of the world. And that is why like two people can walk into a room and one person will see opportunity while the other person will see threat. It's not the fact that that room has both. It's just the fact that two people, their brain is wired to see different things. So we don't see the world as is. We see the world our brain is actually wired to see. So another way to show you to really understand this is your eyes are kind of like a camera. Now, of course, when you click on a camera, it takes in light over here, but that's all it does. It just takes in that light. And then your brain, it's actually kind of like a projector, and it projects out what you want to see, like the image, and not just the image, but the meaning with it. And as it gets filtered once again through all of the neural pathways that hold your beliefs, your thoughts, your habits, and your actions, it basically spits out, like in this example, a movie, aka the world of what you actually see. And a very common example of how your brain can actually change what you see is body dysmorphia, right? So like, I'm sure we've all been here where like one day we're in front of the mirror, we have like a cute outfit on, and we're like feeling ourselves. We're like, oh my gosh, we look so good today. And then the following day, we look at ourselves in the mirror and we're like, oh, we kind of look a little bloated. I don't like how my arm looks. Most of the time, we look inherently like the same, especially after one day. But the reason why we actually see differently is because of our energy and how we're actually basically feeling that day. So full circle moment here, why is this even important when it comes to identity creation? The reason why is because we are not creating our identity from external influences. Once again, what you see is filtered through our brain. So that basically means we are creating ourselves all the time up here. So think about it. If your brain created your current identity right now, it can also recreate it. And that's where things get really exciting, which is what I want to get into next. What actually is changing our identity? Now, the cool part is there's something in your brain called neuroplasticity, and I'm sure you've probably heard it before. It's basically your brain's ability to create new neural pathways to actually change our belief system, which in thus creates your identity. So I want to show you here how it works so you can really understand, once again, from like a neuroscience perspective, how change happens in your brain to create that new version of you. So in your brain, there are a lot of different like neural pathways. Now this one that I'm drawing here is basically a very strong neural pathway, and we're just going to add in these dots here so it looks a little bit more like a pathway. Now, one thing I really want you to understand is a strong neural pathway can be created with either like a positive belief or even a negative belief. So for this example, I'm going to use the thought of I am broke. Now, whether this is like a constant thought that you're having or maybe just a like identity that you've always held for yourself, every single time you either think about I am broke or you're in that state, this neural pathway just continues to strengthen over time. Now, the cool part about neuroplasticity and these neural pathways are every single time you want to create a new habit or a new thought pattern, these neural pathways will start to form on its own because once again, the brain has that ability to be like neuroplastic. However, when you instill in the brain, like once again, a brand new I am statement, a new belief or a habit, it's not used to it yet because it doesn't have a strong pathway. So in the beginning, this actually is a weak pathway, even though it might be like a positive belief. Now, what this really is called is rewiring your brain and reprogramming your subconscious. So the new belief, the new I am statement we put in here is I am financially abundant. Now, over time, as we continue to be this new identity, this weak pathway, once again, will start to form into a stronger pathway because it's like the phrase neurons that fire together, wire together. That's what creates lasting change in your brain. And once again, like, over time, you're basically going to override this strong pathway because it's going to become weaker because you're no longer exercising and being that identity. So this is how we can truly like rewire our brain from a subconscious level to create lasting change. So of course, if we know now that you can literally rewire your brain, the question remains is, how do you actually do it? Which is what I want to get into now. So these are the exact steps to create your new identity. Now, to be honest, there are so many ways, like probably 101 ways that you can create a new identity, but I'm going to go through the top 3 most powerful ways that will actually make like your new identity stick. And once again, it's coming from like a subconscious level. And if you're someone that always tries to change their identity or like change something in your life and you always fall off, this is going to actually help you create lasting change. So the first thing is you need to choose to become a new person and leave your old identity behind. Your identity, it is a choice. And all of the labels that you associate yourself with every single day, you're choosing to do so. Once again, it wasn't something that you were born with. You created that in your mind. Now, once again, it might have been influenced by external things, but your decision to keep that and continue associating yourself with like I'm shy, I have anxiety, I'm bad with money, I'm bad in relationships, you are constantly creating that for yourself. So if you really want to change, you really want to shift your identity, become a whole different person, you want to become unforgettable and unrecognizable, you need to stop identifying yourself with those things because it is not helping you, it is hurting you. And to be honest, like your conscious willpower of changing and not allowing your old beliefs, your old identity, your old thought patterns to take over, that is going to help you. Because for an example, like the one thing that got instilled inside of me from such like a young age was people always told me I was shy. Like, you're so shy, you don't like talking to anybody. Of course, growing up, going into like high school, college, I started to identify myself with that I am statement. So I would tell myself, oh, I'm shy. Like, that's really hard for me to do. I can't communicate well. And of course, I use that as an excuse to why I couldn't make long-term friends, why I couldn't get into a relationship. However, when I got into college and I learned about like personal development and entrepreneurship and I wanted to build a brand and start to create content on social media, I had to stop identifying myself as somebody who was shy because that identity was not a match for who I wanted to be. And I basically had to kill off that old identity and step into a new one. So the first thing I really, really, really want you to know is you have to let go of your old identity. You can no longer associate yourself with all of the old things that created your reality right now. It's time for you to let go and create a new one. And I promise you, your new one is going to be so much better than your old one because for some of you, maybe you have been dreaming for this change for like a very long time. So after you choose, you decide to become a new person, you will let go of your old identity. The second thing that we are doing is something called cognitive reframing. Now that is basically taking your negative like thought patterns or your negative I am statements and reframing them into positive ones that once again are a match for the new identity and the new reality that you want to create for yourself. And a big part of identity creation is speaking in a completely different way. Not just to others, but also to yourself. So the process I like to go through when it comes to cognitive reframing is when you're consciously doing this, and I'm going to talk about how to do it subconsciously here in a second, but when you're consciously doing it, the first thing that you want to do is you want to catch the thought. So once again, for an example, if you're about to do something new and different and you always tell yourself, I just can't do it, you want to consciously catch that thought. The second thing you want to do is you want to challenge that thought. You want to ask yourself, is it true or is it false? And let me tell you, most of the time it is false. It is just keeping yourself like safe and keeping yourself comfortable. Now, after you challenge the thought, the third thing that you want to do is you want to reframe it with a positive one. So if you always tell yourself, once again, I just can't do it, you want to tell yourself, oh my gosh, there's something new and exciting, and I'm so excited to learn because I can always figure things out. Once again, this does not mean it's true right now, and most likely it's not because you don't believe in it, but over time, those neurons, they will fire together, they will wire together, and they will create that new neural pathway, and that will become your new identity. And I did a whole video on reframing negative thoughts to positive thoughts, so if you haven't watched that video, make sure to watch it after this one, because it's really going to help you speak and think to yourself in a completely different way. Now, the next step to change your identity is meditation. Now, I always say, honestly, meditation is the fastest, the best, the strongest way to actually change your identity, because when you're meditating, your subconscious, it's open, like you're actually in communication with it, and that's where you can instill the new beliefs, you can instill the new thought patterns, you can instill the new I am statements. And once again, just so you guys remember, your subconscious, that is where your thoughts, your habits, your actions, your beliefs, it's stored, and they act as a filter in what you see and what you don't see in your reality. Now, when it comes to meditating, I actually love to meditate in two different ways, and most of the time I like to do them like both kind of simultaneously. But the first way is instilling positive and new identity traits / beliefs. So when you get into a meditative state, your subconscious, once again, it's open to change, and your conscious brain, it slows down. Now, when your subconscious is open, that's where you want to start to not necessarily say because you're meditating, but you want to start to think those new I am statements, right? So your beliefs, they are going to be creating the new neural pathways in your subconscious brain. Initially, when you meditate and you start to instill these new thoughts and beliefs, they're going to create, once again, you guys remember, the weak neural pathway. Over time, like repetition is key. Over time, over the course of like a week or two, when you keep meditating and you keep instilling that new belief, that weak neural pathway will start to become that strong neural pathway. And a lot of you have asked me, can you create a deep meditation where you're like saying subliminal so I can really reprogram my subconscious brain? So yes, I am in the process of creating that. So if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that out, because that's probably, once again, it's probably one of the most powerful ways to really shift that identity fast. Now, aside from instilling like the positive beliefs, affirmations, I am statements, the second way is to visualize the new identity. Now, visualizing the new identity is basically visualizing your new self. So for an example, if you work a 9-to-5 job right now, but your dream is to become a business owner, you want to become like a content creator, you want to be traveling around the world, you want to be working from like your phone and your laptop, but you don't even like see yourself as someone who can do that right now. You want to visualize yourself taking action towards building that business. You want to visualize yourself creating the content. You want to visualize yourself booking flights to go to Italy for 3 weeks and creating content there. What happens is also your brain does not know the difference between something that's like real and vividly imagined. So over time, if you repeat the same like imagery in your brain once again will start to create pathways to make that reality actually true. And I did a deep dive. I literally created a whole separate video on how to like visualize while you're meditating. So if you haven't watched this one, you can also watch this next after this video. But like I will tell you, when you meditate, even if you do it for a week straight, whether you do the visualizations or you do like the I am statements, the like shifting the beliefs, or you do the combination of both, when you wake up from that meditation, I promise you, you are going to feel like your new identity. Because when you go out and you start to take that action that day, or you do something new and different, you're not going to be operating from your old identity. You're not going to be operating from the old beliefs, the old thoughts, the old habits. You're going to feel, oh my gosh, like I feel like I've already done it before. And most likely it's because you've seen yourself do it before over and over again. So remember, your identity is not who you've been. It's who you choose to be next. And day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, every single time I choose something that I want in my life, I go through this process, I upgrade my identity, and every single time I become a brand new person. And if I can do it, you can too, bestie. So I love you so much. Once again, if you haven't watched this video, make sure to watch it here, and I will see you in next week's episode. Until then, make sure that you stay unforgettable.